All right, well, good morning, Rocky Hill Community Church small group facilitators. Christopher Scott here. It is Monday, August 24th, about 8:45 a.m. when I'm recording this live on Facebook, and then also it'll be uploaded to YouTube later in the day as well. So welcome and thanks for watching. If you're new with us, these are some videos that I give each week to give you a broad overview of the Bible and then how each book of the Bible fits into that broad message of the Bible. And then I also try to give you one basic small group facilitator tip each week. Okay, so we're continuing our series of looking at books of the Bible of Paul's letters. So in the Bible, there are 66 books in our Bible, 66 books, 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New Testament. And out of those 27 books in the New Testament, 13 of those Paul wrote. He wrote 13 of those. 4 of those 13 he wrote from prison, which I explained last week. And then 2 of those are considered pastoral letters, and then 1 is considered a kind of a last letter, prison letter that he wrote, which was 2 Timothy, the very last letter that he wrote. So let's look at 1 Corinthians today. As I mentioned last week, Paul's letters start long and broad, and they get more focused as you go along in each one. So Romans was written to the city of Rome. Corinthians was written to the city of Corinth, right? These big cities. But then as you get further into the letters, Timothy was written to Timothy, Titus was written to Titus, and Philemon was written to one man. So they get big and long, and then they get shorter and more focused as you go in your Bible and flip the pages, okay? And so the letter that Paul wrote to the believers in Corinth was a letter that he wrote between his second and third missionary journey. So if you read the book of Acts, Paul makes 3 different missionary journeys. And if you have a good Bible with some maps in the back, usually that's one of the maps that will show you where he went. And so he wrote this letter between his second and third missionary journey. And in our Bible, we have 2 letters that Paul wrote to Corinth. We call them 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. But in reality, if you read 1 and 2 Corinthians closely and you take notes as you read and pay attention to the details, most people will say that Paul actually wrote 4 different letters to the believers in Corinth, okay? We don't have the first one he wrote because in 1 Corinthians 5:9, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 9, Paul references a letter he had already sent to them. So 1 Corinthians is actually 2 Corinthians. And then when you read 2 Corinthians chapter 2, if you read 2 Corinthians in chapter 7, verses 8 through 12, talks about this sharp letter, this pointed letter, this kind of conflict-based letter that Paul wrote to the Corinthians, which Titus brought to them, okay? So that's in 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 8 through 12 is that sharp letter. And then we have 2 Corinthians also. So Paul really wrote 4 different letters probably to the believers in Corinth. We just happen to have 2 of them that got included into our Bible. So again, he wrote to this city in Corinth, which was a big city that had a lot of commerce, a lot of trade, a lot of ships would come and offload their cargo and then cruise around the little port and then go get the cargo on the other side. There was a lot of different gods and different influences on that city. So Corinthians is a longer book. It covers a lot of good topics. The Corinthian church is kind of known as the carnal pagan church. They seem to have the most issues, which is probably the reason Paul wrote 4 different letters to them to help correct the different things that were going on. So that's a little bit about 1 Corinthians. So hope that makes sense for you. And if you have any questions, you can drop them down there in the comments, and I'd love to talk to you more about 1 Corinthians, okay? For our small group facilitator tip this week, I wanted to talk to you about trying to make sure the people in your small group, when you're asking them questions, get specific, okay? So you might be using a Bible study guide that has some questions for you, or you might write your own questions, which is fine too. But when you ask those questions, try to get people to answer more than just general, broad Jesus answers, okay? Right? So we've all heard the jokes about the kid in Sunday school, and you know, the teacher is describing an animal and the kid says, that really sounds like a squirrel, but I know the answer is Jesus, okay? You know, we have this tendency that if we've been in church for a little while, we know the right answers, right? We know what we're supposed to say when we're asked certain questions. But in a small group, we really want to dive deep with people in their lives and get to know them, see where they're at in their spiritual walk, and then help them grow in that spiritual walk. So here's an example of how you want to help people go deeper. Just this past week or two, we've been going through the book of Galatians in the small group that I'm part of. And I asked the group, we had finished the book of Galatians. It's 6 chapters. We spent 2 or 3 weeks a chapter, just kind of taking our time going through it. But we took 1 week just to review the book of Galatians at the end. Basically, what have you learned from this book and how has it changed your life? And so that was my question at one point in the group. What have you read in Galatians, or what part of our study of Galatians has changed your life? What has changed in your life based on our study in Galatians? And we had a couple good, conversations. And then one person said, Jesus paid the price for it all. Okay, Jesus paid that. That is true. That is a right answer. But how has that, so I tried, try your best. You want to try your best to follow up. How has that changed your life? How has Jesus paying the price for all changed your life? Okay. And so you want to take those questions that you ask, which people kind of give the broad, answers that sound good, but you want to take them deeper, right? Make sure that they are getting personal, because that didn't really answer my question. My question was, how has a study of Galatians changed your life? Okay, that was the question. Jesus paid it all is true, but that's not answering the question. You want to help people dive a little deeper, and people probably don't even realize they're doing it when they answer those questions that way. But your job as a facilitator is to help them go deep, help them discover what they're learning and how they're growing, and to apply those things in their life. So thanks for watching today. That's your introduction to the book of 1 Corinthians. Next week we'll do 2 Corinthians. I'll have a couple of different things to share on that book. Hope it's helpful for you, and thank you for your ministry, helping people study the Bible and grow in their faith. Talk to you soon.